Okay, so I think we're here to talk about what operators are doing, how they're leveraging IoT or other ways to collect data out on the edge. What are they doing with this data? How is it going to affect the way that they run their businesses and how they adopt technology? I guess we'll kind of start with you, Jim. From the operator's perspective, what do you think? What are you seeing out there as far as trends?
So one thing that's been out there historically is production data monitoring, and then more recently feedback on that. There's some systems that have evolved here in this current generation of tech origination that are really kind of closed-ended. They involve the data capture, they involve the data analysis, and then they involve the feedback. And I think, to avoid having this fire hose of data that's spraying all over an operator and then drowning in the data, to have that coupling where there's a kind of closure on that and the ability to influence or modify behavior based on that data that comes from the field, the ability to generated by the tech companies. That's real important, I think. And so, an early context for that has been kind of production monitoring and production optimization. And then, as you guys will talk about, I think we're seeing it in multiple more context here, even more recently.
Yeah, I think like when you think about edge data or real-time data, there's a few components to think about. When you hear real-time a lot, or you talk, real-time sometimes means daily, sometimes means every couple of hours, and then like for me, real-time means second by second. So I think that's a definition that you see in the space when you're talking about edge analytics, that there's a bit of fuzziness around what we're all talking about, even though we're using the same words. But coming off of your production optimization, yeah, that's not a world we operate in. But what we do see a lot is we see operators attempting to use their SCADA systems and their production monitoring systems as you're hacking them more or less to be vehicles for offset pressure monitoring, right? So during a fracking operation, can they use the pressure sensors they have for production? Can they use that to inform, understand fracture networks, fracture communication? I would say there's sort of like mixed reviews on that, but we're seeing some operators say it's amazing and it's going really well, and we have other operators that say, we tried that, it didn't work for us, we're going to go with a professional offset pressure monitoring tool like Buffalo Head or Abra. So it's really a mixed bag right now as these guys try different things using their existing production infrastructure to inform other operations.
But it is a thing, at least to do it kind of on a hack basis, that's better than being ignorant of it or not trying at all or not being aware of it. These are all points along the spectrum. It's great to see all that because eventually it'll stabilize to a steady state solution.
Well, and it's sort of learning, right? Like as an operator, you look at it and you say, I have this system, let me understand if this does anything for me in real time. Can I even get these PLCs to go down to the second, or I'm at 15 or 30 seconds per minute? And then whatever resolution I can tune them to, do they provide any value, or do I need to go out to the market and buy a new solution to solve the problem?
Or multiple solutions.
Or multiple solutions. It's really fascinating.
Yeah. The power that you're going to have to use on the edge, that's when you obviously start getting into some of the early stages of blockchain talk in our industry. I think, though...
How long did it take you to bring up blockchain?
I've been wanting to. There's some forces at work with respect to that lone worker scenario, right? And having some of this new video technology, some of these new sensors that are out there capturing what people are doing, where they're at, when they're doing their maintenance on their midstream assets, or they're doing they're just simply picking up water. We now can grab some of that and validate the work that our service providers are doing, even when they're by themselves.
Yeah, absolutely. We're like Welly Labs has a real-time frac offering that we can deploy, and in less than a day, you can have second-by-second streaming of your frac operation. And one use case that you could apply to that is exactly what you're saying, is like, am I fracking or am I not? And how long did I frac for? Boom, right then, what was the pump time? And, if you knew you pumped at that period of time, you could check the box in a blockchain and say, I can now invoice and be paid for that period of time. And that extra 20 or 30, that extra 30% of an invoice, you could go finagle the chemicals and finagle the downtime but you know you pumped, and you know there's some amount of money that's associated with that. So go ahead and use a blockchain system and pay for it, right?
The question is do you need to, or can we simply validate that data you're talking about, right? Do we have to get to that next level? I think in a lot of cases we don't. We know that we need, let's say, 20 data points to know that oil ticket for marketing was real. So if it passes all that, pay the man, right?
I can give you, we already have algorithms that'll tell you, am I pumping or am I not pumping, right? And so I can tell you this stage was pumped and it was an hour, it was an hour and a half, right? And it's if that's the contract, if it's a horsepower or a time, you already know what the contract is, and you could carve out that portion and check it off in a contract. A lot of this is available, you can do today using edge data and edge collection, but it's really about having the idea and justifying the business use case and then making the integrations, I would imagine.
Another flavor of the word real time would be to say continuous. And so certain things, if things don't change as rapidly, but you still have continuous measurement, like in tank level or something like that. We're seeing a lot of digitalization of that. You're starting to see more inline flow stream compositional analysis from multiple different, domains. A lot of different providers on these. A lot of them are standing up their own kind of integrated back-end system to kind of capture that, to manipulate that. Don't know if the industry is going to need all that redundancy at the end of the day, but as this explosion of different data types comes, and you find out by measuring things, to measure is to modify, right? And so to measure these things and understand what they represent as part of your production system or your reservoir system, we're going to have this explosion of awareness that comes from all this stuff.
And combine the data
sets. It's going to be really neat to see it all here.
Going back to our original discussion, it's now, what can we do with well data's information that would affect Engage Mobile Ass's platform, right? And you start combining these data sets to make more intelligent business decisions, but to get, like you said, to get those transactions down, to stop wasting time as engineers, because we know we can use the technology to tell us what happened, right? And so we have to get out there and collect it, but then start mixing it.
I think real time is interesting, and if you look at it in the drilling world and definitely in the frac world, where it's still in the early. We've had real-time frac forever. It was called WebEx that was streaming off of the screen, right? We just weren't streaming data, and you couldn't affect the data, and you couldn't run machine learning against the data. But I think like where the industry is starting is a lot of times is get me a data feed, and I'm going to put it in a room where a bunch of humans are going to watch. And those are sort of iffy returns. We saw a lot of real-time operation centers get stood up, and then now we see...
It's kind of transitional.
Yeah, we see some transitioning out, and we see other operators transitioning into the concept. So it'll be really interesting to see what phase 2 of real-time operation centers look like. Because some of these guys, the big guys, doing really well.
They have the drillers not on location anymore. Right. They're drilling from Houston, and it's a North Dakota well, right? It's crazy.
Yeah.
Web-based geosteering, the team, it's collective instead of throwing it over the, email and the status of it, each crew change or something like that. Yeah, it's a big overall.
Yeah, so it'd be really interesting to see as the use cases are adapted and the technology is there to kind of run machine learning against it in real time, or collapse all of that and run it at the edge, put it on a device, and start to tell the field hand what's happening that they're maybe not seeing with the human eye. Like, I think that's going to be really interesting. That's all real time, real time embodiment.
From an emerging tech standpoint, though, I'd almost hate to be in that world, because as you see the explosion of all these IoT devices, not only for our industry but for everybody, how do you pick, right? How do you say this one work versus the other 600 that are either being developed here, in the U.S. or in China or what have you, and it poses a lot of security risk.
There's a lot of good stuff out there that's off the shelf. There's obviously folks that pick up their own hardware and contort it a little bit and make it special. I think some of these solutions, likely in production, they're bringing in their own hardware and layering it on top of the legacy infrastructure that's there, because that legacy infrastructure can't support kind of their closed loop control systems. And so it's really interesting to see how we're kind of blending new with old, or layering new on old, and some people are just trying to use what's in place. And I think the industry's really just working through their different points of view and efforts, and it'll start to kind of winners on how to do that will start to kind of peak out in the next 18 months, I think.
There's different, it's a long game, right? It'll be real interesting to see it all, for sure.